I'm just going to jump right in. Adam, it is so
Let's do it.
awesome to talk to you again. You are one of our first when we first started kicking tables, and it's so awesome to have you back to talk about yet another game. Of course, we had you on for Escape the Night, but now you've got your own game that you've created
That's,
called Asunder, and it's an RPG. Uh,
that's right. That's
that's
right.
exciting.
Escape Tonight is something I co-created, with Joey, and he and
Yeah.
I, made the TV series together. It was a really awesome. And Asunder has been something that's been in the works for about 6 years.
Wow.
Ever since I started directing Tabletop back in the day with Will and Felicia, I thought, man, I need to make this RPG, and I've had this vision of this world, and I want to build it. So slowly over 6 years, I built it, and far too much money. Because I said, well, if I'm going to do it, it needs to be as good as the player's handbook, right? So, 160 commissioned art images,
Wow.
high gloss, fancy everything,
Wow.
and 9 custom minis, and this whole custom dice, a keeper's screen, a novel we even commissioned.
This
So
is
I said,
huge.
let's, right, if we're going to go in, let's go broke, right?
Wow. Well,
and,
tell us about the
and
world. Tell us about Asunder. What is the world you've created here for this RPG?
Yeah, so Asunder is a dark fantasy tabletop game, RPG. And I say dark not because there's little light, but because it deals with sort of heavier and mature themes. And in this case, the world is dying, and it has no metal. And what's happened in it is when the gods left the world, the divine essence inside of people bonded with different parts of the world, and they've been able to reshape it. And so some of the people on certain islands are able to reshape plants into living weapons and complex machines.
Very cool.
Some can take on the shape of beasts. Some can manipulate gravity. Some who are on the sea, their essence got lost in the waters, and they have mutations, multiple arms or gills. And so instead of magical weapons in our world, we have living weapons. So you might have like a thorn-spitting cannon that like lives on your back and like feasts on your health points, right? And you can shoot this cannon, and it has to like physically regrow, and it can die from from exposure or being off of you.
Right.
Or you can maybe have, they build them sometimes with insects, so you might have some sort of insect like eye enhancement, that like literally welds itself into your flesh.
Insects. Oh, it's like a spider, Tico.
No spiders. We'll just steer clear of spiders.
Insects, only 6 legs. Only
Yeah.
6 legs or 7.
Not an arachnid. Insect
Yeah.
is we're good.
Is this
Yeah.
now? Is this Earth-based story, or is this a fantasy world?
This is a fantasy world called the Asunder. And so I brought in a really great team, Brian Engard, who worked on the creation of Fate Core, and Rob Schwab, who was part of the design team on 5th edition and also 3rd edition for D&D. And so he had a game called Shadow of the Demon Lord, which we used as the base system and then embellished and altered to fit in our world. And so so the benefit of that is you get a system that's been tried and true for years, and then you make it fit in this new setting and world. And I loved the idea that there was a world that it didn't have magic. It has these living weapons, and there's this thing called chaos, which was what the gods used to create things, and there are pieces of it left.
Okay.
And you can mess with this, but since it was meant for gods, it usually kills humans.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so it's this dangerous, addictive thing that once you start using it, you want to use more of it, but the more you use it, it does damage to you, and sometimes you blow up, or you kill yourself in the process. So
you gotta do a saving throw to see if it kills you.
Yeah, there it is.
Right? A major saving throw.
A major saving throw. And this system is really cool because it uses paths instead of classes.
Oh.
So instead of you becoming a fighter and you just level up, instead you start at level 0, and then along the journey you maybe joined an army, and so then maybe you would take on the vanguard path, which helps like you are the leader of a squad in that army. And then maybe a couple levels later you abandon that army and you join up with the Wooden Legion, which is a secret society that uses these big mech-like suits made out of living plants.
Oh, so you can continually adapt your play style.
That's exactly right. So your character adjusts and gains paths, and once you assign that new path, then you gain abilities. But instead of a handful of classes, there's literally, dozens of paths.
Okay.
And each player's character experience is very different, because then maybe you chose the survivor path, which makes you tough. You've got extra health because maybe you were abandoned on an island when you were young. And then you decide to join up with this cult that worships Gaia and steals souls, and you become a soul taker. And you start to evolve, and the idea being that your path is tied into your narrative. Okay. So instead of just becoming a better fighter, you might become recruited into the Bone Army, and now you're a mercenary.
But are you merging your paths, or are you forsaking the previous one and moving on?
Merging.
Oh, so you still have the abilities of the previous path.
That's right. Just like in your early days, Sean, when you were offing people in back alleys, you can still do that now.
Shh, we're not supposed to tell anybody that.
Yeah, sorry.
Everyone knows, Sean. Everyone knows.
Nefarious past. And so, and there's only humans in this world. Okay. And so instead of differentiating by race, you're differentiated by the island of origin. Because it's called Asunder because the land was broken asunder when the gods left it. And it started, like, imagine as a Pangea that broke off into all these small islands. Okay. And depending on your island, your origin, either connected with the beasts or the plants or the waters, or in Sky City, the floating islands connected with this Blice crystal that allows them to manipulate gravity. And so you're defined more by your origin versus like your race, if you will.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think I've always kind of found that when I'm playing fantasy or role-playing games, I want to just be a human with a thing, with a gift, right?
Yeah.
And then I also too like this idea that, you know, where you were born locked you into a few choices, right? And also too with these characters, you know, it's in this system you don't have experience points. You level up as the keeper in our world says, hey, you guys level up, and it only goes to level 10 because it's built to be, you know, that maybe over the course of 10 to 12, maybe 14 sessions, you run the whole gamut of your character.
Okay.
Just because I think that for lots of folks, you start a role-playing game group and you get together and you meet 7 or 8 times, and then it gets a little tricky, and then and all.
It falls apart.
Yeah. We've all been through this ride.
Oh yeah.
You could have an experience where if you only met 5 or 6 times or 8 times, you got to really take quite a ride.
Yeah.
So imagine if Dungeons and Dragons is like network TV with 22 episodes. This is like Netflix where you have 6 or 8, and you get the same story.
So tell me, like, this is a huge world that you've built. What was your inspiration, you know, for this world? Like, where did you pull your thoughts and stuff from? Is it just stuff that you've been working on for years, or?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that, you know, it's that I got once I started running ads and talking to people about it. So people started saying, "Oh, this has some Dark Sun similarities."
Yeah.
And I loved Dark Sun as a teenager. It was my favorite Dungeons and Dragons setting. And to be honest, I hadn't thought of it until this game had come out. And then I realized that I'd been incubating, I'm sure, some elements for me. You know, that was a tougher world. There was no metal. That I've always kind of sat with me, that the idea of, like, once you take away kind of European armor and European weapons, you know, you get that out of the mix. It feels like there's this whole other fantastical world, especially if you're using like symbiotic weapons, right? And I think that was what I wanted the most, right? Is that you had a world that didn't feel like traditional fantasy. It was a new way to have things feel fantastical. That's what I think was my real impetus at first, right? And then it expanded and grew into what it is now.
Over 6 years.
I think Yes, right. And I think also, you know, with any of these storytellers, you're also looking to tell the story that maybe you couldn't tell in another game, right? I think hence why there's so many RPGs. And I think this was the story I had dreamed of fantasy world. It looked like this, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool because your characters don't have it's a little bit more. Your health and your ability to fight and survive in combat is not as strong as maybe in 5e, right? And so when you're fighting demons and monsters and chaos beasts, you can run away. That's a real choice. Whereas, you know, you can't remember the last time you ran away in D&D. Whereas in this, you get taken down a little faster, which is, I think, much more like real life, right?
Okay.
Where after you've been stabbed a couple times, as Sean knows from his past, you're kind of taken out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so you mentioned D&D. Is this based on the 5e rules, or is this your own set of rules? Have you created your own rule book? Or is this separate from D&D 5e?
Yeah, so it's a totally separate system.
Okay.
It's based on a game called Shadow of the Demon Lord,
which you mentioned earlier,
by Rob Schwab, who actually worked on that 5e team. So, and then Brian Engard and I worked for a couple of years writing it and crafting it and shaping it to fit in the world of Asunder.
Okay.
Because we have things like Discord, which happens when you interact with chaos, right? And when your Discord equals your strength, you start to fall apart, or your arm becomes permanently made out of glass, or your shadow disappears, or if you take there's a thing called strain, where when you have living equipment on you, it does strain. And once your strain hits your willpower, you start to have breaks. You get permanent diseases. We also added things like addictions. Like you can become addicted to demon blood, and kind of lead you down this path called the Ravager, right? And which gives you influences. And I also
it sounds like something that would happen to Sam on Supernatural, actually.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. And I liked the idea that there was this foreboding hanging over it, right? That like there is an end. And in this game, people take on the role of seekers, right? And they are seeking the truth or answers. And what's happened is each character stems from a moment where they realized the world was coming to an end. Maybe they witnessed the dead get back up, infected with fungi, and start to sweep over a village. Or they witnessed a plague or saw the pure light. And as a result, they can no longer deny the end is coming. And they're now on the path to seek answers. And I liked that, feel like there was something foreboding hanging over you that you were trying to stop before it became too much, overwhelming. Versus maybe just adventuring for fun. You're adventuring and there's a bit more sense of urgency because the end is nigh.
Wow. Now, you mentioned earlier that there's no classes, it's now paths.
Yeah.
But if someone like myself, for example, who typically likes to play like a magic user, what am I going to choose to start with in Asunder? Like, what kind of thing would I look for in Asunder if I like that AoE, that stand back and shoot things?
Well, so I think the way it works in Asunder is that you can roll your characters all randomly.
Okay.
And in my home game and in the sessions that we're playing with Amy Warple right now and Satine Phoenix, everybody created them randomly, which is really exciting. I think you roll what origin you're from, you roll your background, you start to roll these pieces. You have, your character has an element about it called an interesting thing that you roll in the beginning, which might be a deformity or a friend or a memory of something dark and sinister. And I think there's something sort of magical about your character being birthed a bit more organically, right?
Okay.
And you react to the choices versus just saying, I'm the archer character.
Okay.
Instead, it's kind of being birthed from here's what happened to you, right? Much a little bit more like how real life is, right? Where you and I react to what we were handed to. Now, certainly, you can also play it. You can build your character. You don't have to do it randomly. You can build it how you want. But I think that's kind of the encouragement of it, is to let your character be birthed out of the story of them versus I'm the archer. Right?
That's actually really cool. You get to that really brings in true role playing too, because you have to now play what you've been dealt.
Right.
Which it really lends to true RPG.
Right. And characters have a thing called the Fatal Flaw. And the way those work in the game is, let's say, Tycho has a fatal flaw where he can't take authority, right?
That's about right.
Yeah, which is true. But a police officer or somebody from the infantry is hassling you about something, which you didn't do, but because they have authority, the keeper might say to you, Tycho, your fatal flaw has been triggered. This guy's hassling you. You now need to escalate the stakes.
Yeah.
And so it's probably not best for your group but it's who you are as a character. And by choosing to give into your fatal flaw, you get what they call a seeker point, which gives you a bonus on a roll later on, right?
Okay.
So you're kind of incentivized to make choices that would feed your character, but not necessarily maybe feed the
it's not good for the group.
thing.
Yeah, not necessarily good for the group, but good for me down the road. So let's talk about the campaigns themselves. Are there going to be pre-written campaigns included in the, or is this all going to be, as it goes?
Yeah. So for those who back day one, there is a module with 3 campaigns in it that essentially takes your characters from level 0 to level 3. And also, if you missed day one, you can add it on in Kickstarter's new add-on section.
Okay.
But the way these campaigns work and the way they're designed and encouraged is that Asunder campaigns start in the action. So instead of you go to the pub, you get in a bar fight, and then you end up as a mercenary, instead your adventure would start with, you're at the scene of a murder. So there's a woman in the window yelling, "You guys did it," even though you didn't, and the militia's on their way.
I think she's looking at me thinking I did it.
You did.
She knows.
Did.
She knows my past.
Yeah. Asunder campaigns, like I was saying, they start right in the action, right at a moment of choice and climax, and then we use countdown dice. Which, for example, if the militia's on their way, the keeper would roll 1d6. Let's say it comes up a 3, and the keeper says, "All right, guys, you have 3 rounds until the militia shows up." So each time you make a choice, that dice counts down, and then the militia shows up, or the gas spore explodes, or the wire wakes up, to create this sense of pressure and reactive choice.
Tension, yeah.
That is very cool.
So you were mentioned that going to Kickstarter again. Can you let us know a couple of things? Number one, I want to know what's in the set. What do you get in the base set when you get it? What sort of add-ons do you have available? And I would love if you can tease a couple of your stretch goals for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we got is there are 3 paths. There's the digital path, which gets you the 2 source books, which are the Seeker's Guide for players and the Keeper's Tome for game masters, as well as the novel, A Gathering of Chaos.
Oh, nice.
And then there is the Seeker's Path, which is intended for players, which gets you the print, hardbound, full-size 8x11 glossy hardback book. It's 220 pages that's meant for players, along with a print version of the novel.
Okay.
So that's $50. That's the Seeker's Path. And then there is the Keeper's Path at $115, and that's for those who want to create campaigns or players who just want it all.
Right.
And this gives you both print source books, once again hardcover, glossy, the novel, a keeper's screen, and custom dice.
Wow, everything. That's huge.
Get the whole package.
Yeah.
And I think that's for me, at least when I back something, I kind of want the whole garage, right? I just want to get all the stuff. So when that box comes and I open it up, I'm like, yeah.
It's like Halloween. Just trick or treat. Just put it all in, all of it. Just bring it in.
That all-in pledge.
All in, and then our stretch goals are minis. So we have 9 of them, and the first 3 are going to be revealed day 1. And as we unlock those 3, we'll unlock 1 at a time. And I thought there's no better way to reward our backers than with a set of minis. Instead of charging you more for those, if we kill it, you just get more and more of them.
Nice.
And if you chose those only come for the Keeper's Path. But if you chose the Seeker's Path, when the backer kit survey comes out, you can add on, whatever minis we unlocked. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That is so cool. Yeah. What about future plans after the Kickstarter? Do you have plans to continue doing campaigns or to continue providing new material? What are you thinking of there?
Yeah, that's our real hope, is to continue on with our group that's playing online, and to continue source books and campaigns with ideally at least a source book a year and a campaign a year. So that way we have something to continue the audience growing. And depending on where it's at with the audience, it may end up a source book every other year, but always, a campaign out. And we want to build a community. I think that's one of the things that makes these things live, right? Is when there's a community of players, people can hear about it and see it, and it's fostered. We didn't want to just drop a book and say goodbye.
Right.
Hopefully 10 years from now, people are saying, oh man, when I was playing Asunder last week,
Yeah.
that would be the hope.
Where can people find more information about Asunder after the Kickstarter is done? Where will they be able to get their hands on it? Obviously, you want them to, because 10 years from now, you want them still playing. So where are they going to go to learn more about Asunder and buy it after the Kickstarter has been fulfilled?
Yes, so we have a Shopify store.
Okay.
And after the campaign ends, it'll move into our Shopify store.
Okay.
Right now, the easiest way to find out stuff about it is on Instagram at World of Asunder.
Okay.
On Twitter at World of Asunder, or on Facebook at Failed Superheroes Club.
Okay.
All three of those will get to us, and updates will be going on. And obviously, for the next couple of months, it'll all be focused around campaign.
Sure.
And then early next year, we'll start switching it over to our Shopify store where you can pre-order, etc.
Awesome. So the Kickstarter is actually going on right now. It's happening. Everybody go check it out if you are into RPGs. You know, I love a good RPG, even though I can't find a group to play with. But man, your world, Adam, your world sounds amazing. Like, really, I love the idea of the paths and being able to change paths and really kind of evolve your character as you're playing. So everybody go check it out on Kickstarter right now and get in on it and get all those minis, because you know you want them. Adam, it's been a pleasure talking to you again. It was so awesome. Thank you for reaching out. Thanks for coming on the show as our first official second-time guest.
Oh, I'll take that, guys. It's good to be back with you. I love the Canadian love here, the Canadian power.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck on the campaign. I really hope it's a success. It sounds awesome. And hopefully we'll see you back again sometime. I'm sure you've got a third game in you somewhere.
So, it's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Thanks, Adam, for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks so much, guys, for having me on. It's awesome, and Kicking Tables is awesome. These two guys are awesome. We've got a whole lot of awesomeness happening here. You can find the game on Kickstarter. You can keep watching more badass game reviews with these dudes. And check us out. And all this stuff is in the link down below.